assignment 2, project 2 for your 610 class. I kind of wanted to go through what we've got cooking here with this. So we're just going to be doing cloud risk and compliance issues. Risk and compliance is a bread and butter issue within the cloud. We do all the things that we need to do. So as you kind of dig through this, right, we're going to actually go through and take a look at all of the research risks associated with cloud adoption, right? So there's some definite risks when we're actually trying to assess risk in the cloud. How do we do things? How does that process work? What is a shared responsibility model? How does that shared responsibility model work with risk? How does that get written into the service level agreement? And all the other things that you would normally do when you're evaluating or assessing your ability to be cloud ready, right? Or all the rest of the process. You really do want to have a really good risk management process for this. Just because it will really get you kind of going and get you thinking. There are some things that you can transfer. There are some things you can mitigate that are unique to this, so you no longer have to go through a data center certification. So that's one risk that you absolutely transfer. You no longer have to certify your data center. Amazon or Microsoft or Alibaba or Google will all have to carry that data center certification for that standard, right? So whatever way you want to do it, and that's how you're going to deal with risk management as part of the process. And then what are going to be the most appropriate guidelines for ballot for ballot, right? These guidelines are really important. You're going to be a voting system, so you're going to run into a lot of different standards. You're going to run into standards not only at the federal level, but you'll be running into state level standards as well. You're going to have accessibility standards, ADA, and if you do go turn around to other kinds of standards, let's say you do voting in Saudi Arabia, there's a whole cloud computing standard there. If you do India, IT21, if you do Germany or EU, you have all the standards around GDPR for privacy and those risks, and then all of the cloud security frameworks around Europe. If you're doing China, you have a completely different set of standards. So again, those guidelines for managing those risks are really going to depend on where your geofence is and where you need to store and process the data, and then how do you validate the person's actually the person that's doing the voting, right? So that's a big one. So make sure when you get into your risk guidelines that you are really taking a solid look, not just at the election industry guidelines, but any other place that you want to do operations. It may be easier for the scope of this assignment to do it only in the United States. If you choose to do Europe, then you're going to have to start incorporating all those other standards as it goes. Privacy issues, oh man, privacy is huge, and mitigation issues. One of the things that is interesting, and we're talking about in a different class, is that Washington State has a public elections data. So the University of Washington, Spokane, actually pulls down all the voting data every time people vote, and they go and they run their analysis of it. And it's generally also stolen. So my identity, my voting identity, has been stolen twice because the University of Washington did not secure the data correctly, and now the data showed up on the dark web. So there's the thing, right? And that's 2 of the 42 times my identity has been stolen. So you have to kind of take a look at it. Sophia's recommending that we use GDPR. So why would we want to use GDPR in the United States, right? That's a really good question as you kind of go through this and kind of process, how do you want to do this? Risk management matrix, is it possible? Is it doable? Is it something we really want to work on? It's actually really kind of interesting that they're going to use healthcare on this, right? And how does that work? So cloud computing and healthcare. Do we need healthcare? We're doing voting. So again, it's kind of that process, right? Take a look at how that works in terms of what you want it to work as and how you want it to be. Right? Does this work? Is this a good start? Cloud security issues, there are a number of them when it comes to voting, right? And then you turn around and do your whole process on this, right? So when you get through all of the things that you need to do, right? You need to research your risks. You need to identify potential privacy, risk management, cloud computing and security, and then write your final risk assessment. And this is where I really want you guys to pay attention, because you're going to use the risk and report template, right? Which is great. That's going to save you all sorts of time and process. And I want you to kind of see how this template looks here in a minute. Right? And so you've got 7 to 12 page report, right? Title page, summary, risk guidelines, use step 2, step 3, step 6, step 8, right? So make sure you're really tying into how that works in terms of your paper, right? And make sure you go from there, and then really check your evaluation criteria. Because remember, this is how I grade you, right? Organize the document. Is it clearly presented? Can I find all the components? Develop coherent paragraphs. So this is your spelling and your grammar and your communication style, which is great. Identify and clearly explain the issue, question, problem. You're doing risk management, right? You're going back and taking a look at it. I really want a good chunk of legal and regulatory requirements, industry best practices, assess the liability issues, assess network security and privacy risk, and you can go to town on these. These are all fun things, right? So section 7.1, 7.2, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, that's really the bread and butter of a cloud. When you are doing this process, this is exactly where you're at. This is how you're working the project. So you've got some things here, right, that are organizational. You've got some grammar, you've got some spelling, you've got some APA. I've turned on Turnitin, so we can start tracking and seeing that. So we need to make sure that we're citing all of our things correctly. And if you have any questions about that, definitely do go to your resources, right, and go to Turnitin or go to tutoring or the Effective Writing Center. There's lots of ways of getting writing support on this, right? But definitely make sure that you're doing all those things. But make sure when you write this paper, you are using this, right? You're using the template. So I will expect it in the template. And then I want to make sure that you've got all this stuff covered. And go back and really validate. Make sure that you have done these things, right? And that will get you that detail point, and that will get you where you're going. I'm expecting not so much on 1.1, 1.2, 2.1. I am expecting a lot of great detail on 7.1, 7.2, 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3. That's where you're going to be making your money. That's where you're going to be evaluating this technology, and that's where you're going to be evaluating whether you want to do this as an organization, as a company. So that's my overview of Project 2. And making sure that you're writing that final risk assessment and compliance report exactly how we're going to grade it. If you guys do have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you out at any time. But let's definitely do a thing. Let me know what you got. Let me know what you're thinking. I am excited about working with you. Thanks much. Take it easy, and I will see you in the classroom.